Hey there everyone, welcome back to my channel. So I'm doing a series about my parents as they're aging and their chronic conditions are getting worse. So if you're caring for an aging parent and feel like you're constantly putting out fires with one hand and Googling medical terms with the other, you're not alone. Welcome back to Health Made Simple. I'm a registered nurse, a researcher, and the daughter of the most determined 70-year-old on the planet. We're talking about a woman who literally tried to vacuum with a fractured spine. Yep, that's my mom. So what happened to my mom? So here's the deal. My mom fell and ended up with an L2 lumbar fracture. And that's in the lower back spine. Not the worst it could have been, but serious enough that the doctor said, hey, rest. Take your meds. And what does she do? Well, she's ended up doing laundry, cooking, dinner for my dad, who also has dementia, and insisting that she can do all of it and that she's fine with the medication because she feels better. So I told my mom, you're fractured a vertebrae. And she says, well, I still have to feed your father. And this is what we're working with, folks. And I'm sure a lot of you are in the same situation as myself. Why do these fractures matter? Well, lumbar fractures like hers are really common in older women, especially those with osteoporosis. And according to the National Osteoporosis Foundation, 1 in 2 women over 50 will break a bone from it. They're sneaky too. 1 minute you're walking fine, the next, boom, you might sneeze, you cough, twist the wrong way, and your back says, nope, I'm out. These fractures don't just hurt, they affect everything. They increase the fall risk. It reduces mobility, and if we don't give them time to heal, they can spiral into chronic pain. And that's what I'm afraid for my mom. The fact that my mom's also a full-time caregiver for my dad, well, rest is not just on her agenda, but it really should be. And let's talk about the pain management. She's in real pain, and this is compounded by the lumbar fracture as well as the chronic arthritis that she has. Her doctor prescribed something called Narco, which is a combination of hydrocodone and acetaminophen, also known as Tylenol. Now, as a nurse, I get both sides. Opioids like Narco can be a game changer for pain, definitely needed. But they also come with baggage, drowsiness, confusion, constipation, oh boy, and most concerning, fall risk. And let me tell you a story about constipation. It is a real thing. Working in the hospital, elderly patients would come in, some young as well, and they would have such a bad constipation issue that they couldn't go to the bathroom for up to 4 or 5 days. It was so uncomfortable for them that their stool is so hard that the body could no longer eliminate it in a normal way. So the doctor had to use their hands, their digit, and go in there manually and remove that hardened stool. So if you or your parents are taking opioids, please remember that they should really hydrate, and the doctors can also prescribe something to soften the stool. Just an FYI if you're taking pain medications. So going back to the pain medication and all the adverse effects. Now, the CDC has data showing older adults on opioids are nearly 5 times more likely to fall. Yes, Narco helps her move, but it's a double-edged sword because the more she moves, the more likely she's going to take another fall. So I'm doing the caregiver dance, trying to keep her safe while she's trying to dust the top shelf. So what does my mom have? So she has rheumatoid arthritis. So her rheumatologist won't fill her Narco. And you might be wondering why. It gets tricky, and maybe you've run into this too. Her rheumatologist, who's managed arthritis for years, can't refill her Narco. Not because he or she doesn't care, but because new opioid prescribing rules make it nearly impossible for specialists to keep writing these scripts. And you may be wondering why. Well, the CDC and the DEA have cracked down hard. Well, understandably so, because of the opioid epidemic. It's also left a lot of the older folks in legitimate pain kind of hanging. And in California, it's even more layered. Who would figured, right? Well, doctors have to check a system called Cures. It's basically a prescription background check before writing anything classified as a controlled substance, like narco. And they have to keep checking it every 4 months. So it's like asking your doctor to file taxes, run a background check before they hand you a pill bottle. Imagine being a doctor holding a bottle of narco like a hot potato, and if you drop it wrong, bam, you're in the trouble with the board. So a lot of them simply just don't write them anymore. So what is another treatment besides her medication? One option the doctor floated was vertebroplasty, where they inject a special cement into the broken vertebra to stabilize it. Well, it sounds extreme, right? But it's actually not uncommon. Some studies show it helps relieve pain up to 90% of the people who receive the procedure. But here's the catch. It works best when the fracture is brand new. And like many older patients, my mom is not exactly eager to get a procedure. She hears injection and assumes surgery. And that's totally understandable. So I want to go over other things that could complicate issues with arthritis. Given that my mom also has rheumatoid arthritis and recently this fractured lumbar spine, the pain can feel 10 times worse because her joints are already inflamed. And rheumatoid arthritis isn't just joint pain, it's autoimmune. Her system attacks her body like it's playing some twisted version of whack-a-mole. She's on a mix of meds, some over the counter, some prescribed. We're cautious with NSAIDs because of age and kidney risk. And some days, even her arthritis meds don't touch the pain. And bone diseases are no joke. You wouldn't want arthritis or any of the degenerative bone diseases. We hear a lot of, oh, it's just aging, but let's really be clear. There's a difference between natural aging and living with bone disease. Let's name a few. There's something called osteoporosis. This means you have fragile brains, fragile bones, and high fracture risk. Osteoarthritis, and that's where the cartilage breaks down. And then you have degenerative disc disease, where the spinal cushions essentially deflates. The next, what my mom has, rheumatoid arthritis, which is an autoimmune and an inflammatory disease. There's also something called Paget's disease and ankylosing spondylitis, less common but still disabling. Bone-related fractures cost the US over $50 billion a year. And with the aging population, that's going to go up. How do we look at these bone diseases? Is it nature or versus nurture? What is the general cause of this? Is this just a bad genetics? Partly. But lifestyle and environment matters so much in any type of chronic diseases. So such as not enough exercise. I can't tell you how important getting regular exercise is. And also poor nutrition. And don't get me started with smoking. And low income or limited access to health care, something called social determinants of health. Where and how you live affects your bones as much as what's in your genes. One Lancet study even linked low income to higher fracture risk due to delayed care and less physical activity. If we think about that, it does make sense. Because if you live in a low social economic area, you're probably less likely to have the resources available for you. So what can you actually do to help yourself or to help a loved one like my mom? Here's what helped me and what might help you. So make safety normal. It's hard because you have parents that are fiercely independent, like my parents. You can have grab bars, walkers, night lights. There's no shame using this. Just be smart. Communicate with providers. Ask your doctors about alternatives to opioids. And because there are side effects with any type of opioids, look for any red flags such as confusion, drowsiness, and constipation. Those are all connected. and know when to push and when to let go. Really, with aging, dignity matters too. And I'm really learning that with my mom and my dad. I really found myself to be impatient because there are things that my mom was doing after her fall that she shouldn't be. She should be resting. The reason she gave me was that her pain medication, she felt that it was working for her and that she's able to move. In a way, she's trying to keep her independence. And growing old and having limited mobility, it's hard to accept by anyone, right? So I learned to have more patience. I also learned to be more patient with my siblings. I have a healthcare background, but they don't. So a lot of times there's miscommunications. I have assumptions of things that they should know, but those are assumptions that I shouldn't really hold on to. So be kind to yourself, be kind to people who you are taking care of, because they're individuals and their autonomy matters so much. And also one important thing too that I found in dealing with my parents and my siblings is that when in doubt, just ask until you get the answer you really need. So what are we doing now with policy and actual actions that may affect us? As a quick side note, yes, policy does matter. Recently, in 2023, Biden's executive order focused on elder care and caregiver support, which is really good. I hope that program gets expanded. And also CMS is expanding coverage for bone scans and fall prevention programs. But what about NIH funding? Well, just got slashed by $18 billion. Research, home care support, medication access, this stuff all tied to politics and funding. And as caregivers, we really need to be engaged in any of the fundings or policy changes that can affect elder care. And here's some final stuff from one caregiver to another. Listen, this stuff is hard. There's no manual. My mom drives me nuts. It scares me, makes me laugh, makes me cry, and teaches me patience every single day. And I know you're probably navigating the same maze, doing the best you can. So here's the real talk. You're doing great. You're doing your best. And no, you're not crazy for needing a breather or crying in your car sometimes. So we're in this together. I have more videos out about my mom's recent fall. Please take care of yourself. If this resonated with you, please like and share and subscribe for more real life, real talk, and health tips. If you got a caregiver question, drop them in the comments section below. I read them all, try to, usually while I'm hiding in the laundry room. Well, thanks for being here. Thanks for listening. Take care of yourself and your mom. Bye for now.